Welcome back to the podcast. Today's guest, I'm super excited about. This is such a powerful conversation that we're going to have and so important. Her name is Laura Enzor. She's a wife, mother, Lyme disease butt kicker, former modern dancer, and fitness pro turned life reinvention coach for women in the messy middle. She is on a relentless quest to ignite metamorphosis in lives, and emerging from the depths of Lyme disease, Laura sculpted resilience through coaching, evolving from an overworked victim to a thriving entrepreneur. And today, Laura lives in Arizona with her husband and rescue pup Luna, and she is a mom to an amazing daughter, Haley, who's getting married very soon. And we are going to talk about Lyme disease, something that I struggled with and something that Laura has dealt with. And I'm excited for this conversation to bring awareness to this. So, Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I was looking forward to our conversation all week, and it's kind of nice to end it on a Friday with chatting with you.
Amazing. Yes. We met in a community, a business community of women. And I was so in awe when I found out, because you are just amazing. I found out you struggled with Lyme, and it's just amazing because I carried shame and hid it for so long. And it was just such a story, but I wasn't who I am today. And now I know that sharing is helping so many people. But Laura, so I know we both share that experience of battling Lyme disease. Can you take us back to the beginning? When did you start noticing something wasn't right? And what was the journey like for you? So many people don't realize how misunderstood Lyme disease can be. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced getting diagnosed and finding support? How did that journey look for you?
Well, it started way back in the early 2000s for me.
Mm.
And I never even knew about Lyme disease. So I didn't even know the name. And I was living in Buffalo, New York, and had a lovely backyard, a lot of deer in the back, and it was very picturesque. And my daughter was in third grade. Life was good. We moved from Michigan out there, and we did stay 2 years. But halfway through our time there, I came down with what I want to say is like a flu. And what do you do when you feel fluish? You just stay home. You don't call the doctor, you take liquids, you rest. And it really just felt like the flu. And when I look back in it, no one else in my family got it. like no one else had symptoms. And it kept it was like an extended flu. And then it just very quietly turned into a malaise. And that's the only way I can describe it. I had been a very positive, upbeat person. And all of a sudden, I guess I would call it a depression. And because my body was sending me those signals, like, I don't feel good. And it was a time where there was a short section of time where I didn't even know like what I was doing in a whole day. I just knew I have to be in place for when my daughter gets home at 4 o'clock, have her snack and talk with her, because I had no energy to like be responsible for other things. And it was kind of strange. And I remember just kind of consulting a neighbor about it who happened to be, in the medical profession. And she thought, well, is this happening? Is this malaise happening around your cycle? So this is the beginning of trying to pinpoint it on a zillion other things rather than Lyme, right? So I thought, oh, I think so. And then I was placed on antidepressants, and that just kind of flatlined me. And I kept sitting there going, I don't understand depression because I'm really not depressed about anything. Like I like my family life, like everything was good. So it started the confusion. And from then on, I would not get diagnosed for 10 years after that point. I had been in the fitness world, so I, looked healthy on the outside. And every doctor I would see would basically tell me I was a little nuts.
Right.
right? It's kind of cuckoo because they're like, well, you look healthy. And I'm like, well, I know what optimal feels like. I know it. So I'm not optimal. Things are strange. And I like had a new symptom of anxiety that I never dealt with before,
Did
So
you
all of a
ever
sudden I'm very
have,
anxious.
yeah, did you ever have like severe joint pain? Like I had.
Yes, yes. And what's so interesting about it, it can be masked. Like during that same time, I was stepping on a stool, dusting some, top of a shelf or something, and fell through the stool, like the bottom, it caved in. And my foot hurt. But after I had gotten the flu, it magnified it,
Right.
right? So, any other doctor would be like, oh, well, you hit your foot, just don't walk on it, or, take a break, stop,
Mhm.
so I never really got any solve for that. And then we moved to China and we moved back. Like there was a lot of moving
Oh,
in my life.
wow.
And every time we would move, pack up and move, the symptoms would flare
Better.
up.
Stress.
Yeah. So it was about 10 years of what I didn't know what I had, but the disease would come out and then it would go in hiding. I'd get
Yeah.
settled and things seemed to be fine. The thyroid issue started, happening. I went into early menopause at 45. Um, so I didn't get diagnosed until I moved out to Arizona, and a doctor took me off my thyroid medication. He said, "Oh, you're like one of those people who probably don't even need it." And I go, no, I just was I like got the right amount. Finally, someone said, you need to be optimized." And I was like, I was back to myself. I landed my dream job at age 50. I was like, yeah, like I'm back. And then within a year, another doctor takes me off of it. And that's when Lyme disease exploded. Like you couldn't deny something was wrong. I couldn't walk to the kitchen. I had that brain fog, like
Mm-hmm.
not even like a sugar high brain fog, right? It's like it's debilitating brain fog. Um, and the symptoms sound like a lot of things, right? A lot of different things too. And I think that to me has been the hardest part in the beginning to live with is people not understanding.
Yes. Yes. I had the same thing. And I had three doctors tell me it was fibromyalgia, and I knew that it wasn't that. And I took myself to a rheumatologist, and he also said, you have fibromyalgia from a physical exam. And I said, you're going to tell me from a physical exam? And he says, I'll draw blood. I said, please do. Like, that's why I came here.
Right.
And it showed Lyme, and he said Lyme is rare in Michigan. I was in Michigan my whole life till 3 years ago. Where in
Oh,
Michigan were you guys?
Detroit area. So Rochester Hills.
Oh, wow, that's so funny. I was in Novi for 25 years, and
Oh,
my whole
I
life.
know. And I used to live in Farmington also.
Oh my goodness, small world. Oh, we're connected. Oh my. So, but anyway, yeah. So let's see. So I again was misdiagnosed. And when I drank alcohol, I couldn't walk the next day. I was destroyed for, I was like an 80, 90-year-old person coming out of the bed. My joints, everything was killing me. There was no way that, what happened to me was just. And then when he said that Lyme is rare in Michigan, which was inaccurate, but I believed him, my friend who's a pharmaceutical rep who lives in Arizona, he said, or he lives in Vegas, he said, look into that Lyme disease. And then I did, and it fell, all of the puzzle pieces fell in place. But so tell us about when you did find out finally the diagnosis. How did that go?
Um, well, since I was thinking in my head, this has to do with thyroid because when I was, having the brain fog and all the symptoms, um, I was like, I gained 10 pounds lying in bed in 5 days without like overeating, right? I wasn't even interested in eating and I gained weight. So I'm like, whoa, I'm having a metabolic disorder of sorts. So I thought, well, naturopaths really know how to deal with thyroid. So I just looked up a naturopath because I had already gone the other route and it wasn't getting any help.
Right.
And so he ends up being a Lyme literate doctor. I don't even know what that is. I lucked out. I truly lucked out because he sat and listened to my story for about an hour and a half. And, I'm like, okay, I would teach 3 classes in a day. I run, like this was my life. And all of a sudden I can't do anything. And for me, the identity loss was just as much pain and, crazy making to me as the disease.
Oh, yeah.
Like I was this person,
Yeah.
one day, and then the next I'm something completely different. And he detected it. Like he said, we're doing this test, this test, this test. I didn't even know what all the Western blot or all the other tests were. And all of them came back positive for 3 strains of Lyme and 4 other co-infections.
Mm.
And at first, like probably as well with you get a diagnosis and you have a minute of vindication, right?
Yeah.
I knew it, and like, oh, okay. And then the reality of what that means
Oh, exactly.
hits you. And it's not like, I think this is the thing that people don't understand. It's not like when you get the flu or you get even arthritis, just plain arthritis without having Lyme disease, and you can mitigate symptoms with medications and things. It's that to get well, you have to feel worse first
Yeah. Right.
because that
Exactly.
die-off
Yeah.
process happens. And that part I wasn't prepared for. And when I had just moved here and I had met some people at the gym. It's usually where I always meet my friends. And soon after that, like within a year, like this happened to me. And so I was missing, and then I came back and I've put on extra weight, unexercised. I'm feeling really horrible about myself. And I can't even do like the spin class anymore. I have to do very little, but I'm trying to show up. And I caught myself trying to push myself again, right? And I did, fortunately, a big component of my healing was that I did the mindset work. That I did enlist a coach, and because I knew like I wasn't going to be making any more friends with the mindset I had, the pity parties I was
Yeah.
having.
Yeah. That was
Um,
my next question was going to be, how did your healing journey inspire or inform your decision to become a coach?
Yes. And that, that was it. I started in one program. Well, first I started with a one-on-one coach, and then I realized a lot about myself. And I'm like, wow, this is valuable work. And it started to help me cope better, right? Like all of a sudden I wasn't whining about all the things I couldn't do and everything all my friends could do, because I was stuck in that this isn't fair. Why
Victim
me?
consciousness, right?
And it just felt like I couldn't see my future. I didn't have one. I thought I was just going to lay on the couch the rest of my life. And that seemed depressing, like
Hmm.
majorly depressing to me. So working with the coach helped me really sort through that. I didn't even understand the wealth of, personal information I got out of it when I was just trying to cope with my disease. Like that's what I went in for to coaching for. And then I ended up, seeing such results. I spent a year and a half at the Ford Institute, and I didn't intend to be a coach, right? This was all purely for me. And and they're like, well, why, you've taken all the prerequisites, why don't you just do the practicum and the final exam? And I thought, well, okay. They go, well, at least it'll enhance your own personal growth if you decide not to do it anyways. So I was on board with that, and I still in my mind, and this is also something you can relate to, and with the people that you help too, is that you know we get layers of our transformation, right? And And sometimes, we think we're there or we know it or, or like we're in a really good place. And I caught myself believing I was going to be back teaching fitness like in a year. I thought my positive mindset was going to make it so. So I had to learn a lesson about how you have to be patient, right, with reality
Right.
and acceptance and surrender to a lot of things that you don't necessarily want to, or but it all helps with dealing with the whole process
Yeah.
because it's lonely. I mean, it was lonely for me at first. And thank goodness, my daughter, I only have one child, but my husband, very understanding, worked really hard. So was fine relaxing in the evenings. I wasn't a big socialite during those years. And that was a flip, for our relationship too, because he's super social. So I really kept seeking personal growth because it really was my lifeline. I
Yeah.
mean, that was my lifeline while I became my own best
So that was,
advocate.
yeah, that was your underlying blessing from the Lyme disease. Is you transformed and now you're helping others do the same thing. Did you ever have to do IV antibiotics or were you doing oral? And like, because I did oral, I did herbs, I started lighting Shabbat candles, I started a gratitude practice. I fought it for 4 years, but I mean, I still, I just, but yeah, it was crazy. But I joined community. I was in support groups, and that's how I found the word Lyme literate medical. I found all
Mhm.
because these people knew all the things. They read all the books. They'd been to all the doctors. But my first doctor that I called wanted $1,000 for the first visit back in 2011, 2012.
Mm.
And the next doctor that was a Lyme literate, I couldn't get it until April, and it was November. So I was
Oh, wow.
in a mess, and I was alone. But anyway, so were you ever on
The antibiotics.
the
Yeah,
IV one?
that was the first thing, but not intravenous. But
Oh,
after a year or so, it was ruining my gut.
same.
Ugh.
I couldn't
So
eat a carrot without getting a reaction.
right. Right. And yeah, and you probably, I heard you say too, there was like 3 or 4 years where there was no alcohol. Like I wouldn't even want to take a sip of it because it would make me feel horrible because it just fed all
Yeah.
the sugars fed the bacteria. So yeah, that took a whole that and gluten and dairy and all of those things. But I learned to become my own best advocate because the reality was all of us Lyme people are different. Like we don't have exactly the same set of, let's say, strain of Lyme even, or the co-infection. So they all play different parts. And I think like even some of like the more pronounced symptoms are like symptoms of MS, symptoms of
Right.
fibromyalgia,
Oh
symptoms
yeah.
of
Mm-hmm.
lupus, so
Right.
it's kind of like the disease that has them all, but the one outstanding that makes it different than the others is the migrating joint pain.
Yeah.
And I didn't learn that till later. And then I could understand, like, wait, why is my left foot giving me a problem for months on end? And then all of a sudden it's my right hand and I'm picking a plate up and then it just drops because I have no mobility in it, like out of the blue. Like
Right.
you just go,
Or
what is this?
yeah.
And many doctors wanted to do the operation on me, and I'm like, nope,
Oh, good for you.
no, I'm not doing it. And I mean, right, I lasted 10 years without getting the operation, and I've been really good until just lately. I've had a little bit of swelling in the joints. But one of the things I looked up before this conversation was that I wanted to make sure people knew that it's around roughly 300,000 people a year are diagnosed with Lyme disease.
Oh, I'm glad you did that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And that is considered kind of epidemic levels,
Oh yeah.
you know? And it's like, and then I think about both you and I weren't diagnosed right away, and think about all the people that haven't been diagnosed that
Right.
really do have it.
Yes.
So it's really, it makes me sometimes kind of angry that there's not enough um, information or making it widely available for people. Because I wish I even knew about it. I would have sought the proper doctor,
Yeah. Right.
you know, because not, I don't think medical doctors don't really deal with it.
No, they don't really deal with it. And they don't really believe in it being more than 2 weeks of antibiotics or something.
Right. The
Um,
doxycycline cycle.
yeah.
Yeah. But if like, I think if I would have known about that, at least I might have at least been able to try that option when I was feeling bad, right? You know, right when it started, before
Right.
it gets in your system, and then it takes up residency, and then it can build at
Yeah.
certain times.
So
And
you never saw a red circle. You never saw the bite that you remember.
did you?
I don't really remember. I feel
Mm.
like I might have, but it went away. So that's where I feel like it was dormant in the body. And then actually, I had dental work, and that's what started my whole journey because my dental work probably woke it up. I had a surgery,
Mhm.
and my whole, I had this yeast infection like I've never had in my entire life. And that was the beginning of everything.
Mm.
So I feel like I probably had the bite. I probably felt something, and then it went dormant, and then it woke back up with the dental. That's all I can think of because that's when everything happened for me. But um, I just wanted to ask like how your experience with Lyme impacts you today, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And, you know, did you answer about what made you decide to become a coach?
Oh, right.
And then you help women in the messy middle. What does that mean? And why do you think so many women lose their spark during midlife?
Yes. Um, Given the fact that, yes, I did lose my spark due to, I always think, you know, midlife. Well, first of all, how I became a coach was that I was dragging my feet. I slept for a year with Epstein-Barr virus after my the certification that I got. And then I had said, gosh, I could help people with this. And then my Epstein-Barr flares up, and literally it was the mono. And so I slept for a year. Then I started working on a website with somebody, you know, like I decided I was going to do it. I was going to try, but mine took very many years to get going. Right. And then I felt like, oh, now it's been a few years. I've been out of my training. I haven't been coaching. So I went through another certification that was 2 years long. And, you know, we had an intensive coaching each other, inside and outside clients. And so that just pretty much wrapped up 2.5 years ago. So for me, it was a longer path because, you know, I've never worked behind a computer or sat at a desk. So I've been a fitness instructor or a dance instructor my whole life, right? So this whole thing, like even using Canva, and the marketing part of it has been really
Challenge.
um, challenging, let's just say, and, you know, figuring that out. But I really felt strongly about helping women in, I call it, in the messy middle, because I feel like many of us are either high achieving, or whatever name you want to put to it, the super mom, all that. We get into our roles. We're the moms and the wives, and we do all the things. And I really needed to kind of rediscover a new purpose for my life, right? Because I wasn't able to do the things I used to do anymore. I mean, I couldn't do an aerobics class. I couldn't do weight training. I couldn't, any of that. So
That's
my,
huge. You lost your identity, like you said. That was a gigantic
yeah,
piece. It's like when a man loses his job, it's like devastating because that's like their whole thing. So that's huge on top of this illness, that took over.
yeah.
Thank
And
God
I
you
didn't,
had,
and
support.
I didn't know how to be with myself in a way. Like, and I realized that the title and the job meant a lot. Like, I mean, I loved it for sure, but that I was very invested in the title of Laura, the fitness instructor, Laura, the dance instructor. And without those titles, I felt like, who am I?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
And so through the work, I kept getting to know myself, so much. And it really motivated me to say, no, you know what? I really want, I think in midlife, women end up hitting that wall, whether it's because the kids are gone or whether it's because an identity shift, relationship struggle, anything that is taking you off course. And then and all of a sudden, what I found is my ways of coping and dealing with change prior to this experience, I was managing, right? I could manage things. I could, work harder. I could do, all these things to make my outcome work. But when I no longer was able to do that, I really had to dig deeper inside myself and understand a lot of, my coach brought forth so many things that, like, wow, those were things that aren't even me,
Right.
that's not the truth of me. And once I kind of hooked into that, I thought, every woman deserves to know their fullest self, to live in that wholeness of who they really were born into this world to be. And, even if my mission is helping one woman at a time, you know, to raise up the vibe of the women's collective, let's say, that feels inspiring and purposeful to me. You
Absolutely.
know, I don't like, could probably do group programs at this point, but I'm someone that enjoys the one-on-one container so much. So I stick with that. And it's, when I witness somebody else having an aha, as I'm sure you do too, you're just like, and the magic happens again, right? It's like you, and you're witnessing magic in somebody. It's just that's the best feeling.
Yeah.
And I found that, I can sit at a desk, even if I'm being symptomatic, I can show up for someone.
Yeah. Let me
And
start. Yeah. I was just going to share with you that, in 2016, after battling for 4 years and obviously feeling better and all that, I was in a self-development workshop and I started crying within, the first whatever. And the guy's like, in front of all of the people, he's like, you identify yourself with Lyme disease. And then it was a light bulb moment. And I went back to my MD alternative doctor at the time. And I basically said, I want you to draw blood and that was like the first, I mean, this was so many years ago to where I know so much more today, but I still had that light bulb moment. And I went back and she drew blood. And the only thing it showed was like one inflammatory marker.
Mhm.
And I stopped identifying myself as a sick person that would never have a relationship, that would never be able to do these different things. And I just from that day forward stopped. And I just, it's almost like, yeah, because we all, experience different things. And I was done with the label. I was done with identifying myself as this Lyme person. I stopped going to all the meetings. I didn't want to hear all the negative, the stuff. I was done, but I just wanted to share that because I thought that was very empowering. And then I started hiring coaches in 2017 and they were all spiritual and, working on myself and healing, growing and evolving. But like, I feel like the Lyme disease was actually the awakening of like it taught me how to take care of myself because I grew up in a certain way where I didn't know. And so it forced me to take care of myself, prioritize health and wellness, which still to this day, like everyone's like, how do you stay motivated or go to the gym? It's like, because it's like freaking my immune system. It's more than just looking good. It's my mental health. So
Yes.
yeah, I had asked you like how your daily, how Lyme impacts your like every day. And also I would love for you to answer, what's one powerful piece of advice you often share with your midlife women who feel stuck or disconnected from their magic?
Well, to reconnect them to what they, asking those powerful questions of which us coaches do, of, what do they want? And really, you know, getting them to really listen to their inner wisdom, because they're going to find it themselves, when they can get that practice on really listening. And that's what I usually see, is that life is just moving by so fast for, most of them. And then, or it can be like a grind, or it could be like just going through the motions. And so there never is that little breath. And so, helping them and supporting them in creating that space in their life to really take care, because I fiercely protect my peace, fiercely.
Mm.
Like, I don't have, still to this day, even though Lyme's in remission, I don't do social events Friday and Saturday night. It's one or the other,
Yeah.
you know. And
Right.
I still don't, I mean, if I'm going out Friday and it might be just a quiet dinner with my husband, we're just eating and then, coming home. But I treat myself as though I am this precious temple and I don't want to activate anything. So I stay away from it.
Right.
You know, I
What's
stay
about
true
your
to myself.
nutrition? Like your nutrition and like, do you drink alcohol today or no?
I will because I don't have as bad of a reaction anymore, because the Lyme part is not activated. Um and so I can take part in a celebration, but I always watch sugar and gluten and dairy, because they just are all a mess
Um,
for pretty
wow.
much anybody.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I could never get away from, if I had dairy, cow milk dairy, I'd get big dents under my eyes. I would blow up, my stomach would swell up. I mean, it's just not a way I want to walk through the world.
Yeah.
If I could control something. So it taught me to be, I was already pretty disciplined with exercise, but on those other things, yeah, I tighten it up. But I I think the advice that I could give is, and it's tough doing it this late in life too, is to really take measure of the people that you're surrounded with, right? So, there might even be, in a group of people that you have, there might be one that always seems to like get you, or
Sure.
drag something down or whatever. And, it was through my training too. I was really hyper noticing these things. And I had to make a lot of decisions that I think in another year of my life, I could have never made.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah. Very.
just fading off certain relationships, right? And that, that meant that there was a hole sometimes in the in between, you
Yeah.
know and but then when I would do it and it would feel uncomfortable to do it, I would feel like a backpack of weight just dropped to the floor. I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this sooner?
Right.
Right. And so the more I experienced that shift of, we don't even know we're carrying weight. But then when you do something that is really coming from a serving place in your heart
Yeah.
and you see the result, you go, oh, this is the path.
Yeah.
This is the path that's going to help me not only mentally and emotionally live a better life, but it's also going to help serve me with my health, because it's one and the same. I have to put myself first. And if it's not serving me, it's draining energy out of me,
That's right.
and I can't afford it. So
Exactly.
that is the biggest, probably the biggest gift.
Yeah. Protect your energy. Um,
Mhm.
so I love that you created a life in Arizona with your husband and your sweet pup Luna. What brings you joy every day in your everyday life now?
Well, right now it's spring and I'm just looking outside at I have this rose garden, white roses,
Mm.
and the desert is a hard place to garden, okay? Because the earth is a little hard. But when it's spring, the places that I've made in my yard, like I I call it, my house is my sanctuary. So
So do I.
I make it delightful for me to be in,
Yeah.
right?
I love
And
that.
my little simple pleasures of having my green tea in the morning without picking up my phone and without like all the fast, busy stuff, and rearranging my workouts to time that works better for me instead of, you know, and going, if I don't post something today, I'm not going to sweat it, you know, like, and
I
just
love that.
being
Permission
kind.
to have ease and flow and
Mhm.
have your morning practice, your morning your
Yeah.
or whatever it is, and just creating space. And I love that so much. And that's when we get the divine messages and we get to listen to our inner guide and all that. I love that so much. So that's in your garden sounds beautiful. So your daughter's about to get married. What has motherhood taught you about transformation, patience, and growth?
You know, well, because of what I learned through the coaching method too, about, you know, how much I absorbed from my family, from my caregivers, from the world around me, I really see the importance of modeling, you know, all of this that I help my clients with. It's so important for my daughter to see that. You know, she's 31. You know, I want her to take care of herself. You know, I want all these things that, you know, I learned probably very late.
Same.
I
I
mean, I
learned that.
dabbled in stuff and when I was in my 30s, you know, learning how to communicate better in relationships, you know, like I did little patches, but didn't totally run for help until my life went completely upside down, right? And that's when I think most people start going, okay, something's got to give. And you know, there's little signs along the way, but I think that the fact that I chose to do that work and become a healthier person emotionally myself, like part of what I enjoy about my doing my daily routines too is that that provides me that sense of peace that I don't think I really felt most of my life. You
Thank you
know,
for
like
sharing that.
even when I was on the outside doing and being and, you know, being the fitness instructor, being this, there still was a like, I was afraid of quiet, right? I always had to do. I I
It's a
didn't stop
program.
until it was after dinner, you know? So it was like this
It's
way of
like,
living right now is I can be productive, but I don't have to exhaust myself.
and you also don't have to be productive. Like you are
Right.
worthy
There's
for breathing. You're worthy for living. You have a beautiful home, a beautiful life. You don't have to show up on social. You don't have to hustle. And I think it's a culture, it's a program, especially as women, that we are taught our entire lives to like serve everybody and make sure everybody's okay. I can see that you are like the super mom like I was. That was something we also, the identity piece, but like, you're like, okay, your priority was your daughter. So you're like, okay, I got to be good for at 4 o'clock with her snap, like of all the things, that was the most important. That's
right.
what I got just listening to you as a mother to mother. And it's like that's so how I did it when I was sick is I was a single mom and he would go back and forth. And so I would rest when he was gone. I was taking care of myself and resting. If I went out, it was exactly I would one day and the rest. But it was mostly when I was really sick, it was just work and take care of myself. Period. That's it. Epsom salt baths and
Oh
all
yeah.
these things,
Love those.
I just think that like we have to be more gentle with ourselves and give ourselves more grace. So when I was listening to you and you're like saying I can be productive, it's like we don't even have to be productive, but like we have this
Yeah.
program that are like we have to earn our worth or something, and we don't. Um,
Right. Right.
yeah. So
Right. And productive can be the relaxation, the break. You know, that's productive in a way. It's just like reframing what, yeah,
Oh, I
productive.
love that. That's 100% true. So May
Mhm.
is Lyme Disease Awareness Month. That's why we're meeting and sharing. What do you wish more people understood about Lyme disease?
Um, Something that I had always, it would have made me feel good and seen when people found out I had it, that they wouldn't rely on me to tell them what the disease was, because it feels like when someone's like, well, what are your symptoms? And then you'd go through the list, and then then you start feeling like, oh, I'm not going to bother, saying all of them. I just wish people would just research it themselves and take an interest in knowing what you're dealing with. Like that was always my wish, that people wouldn't, they might be, then if they knew, like my friends then got to know, oh, you sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down, and oh, how's, is this a good weekend? Should we
Yeah.
meet? And they would totally understand, if I wasn't going to be present. Um, but yeah, I always think that it's kind,
Yeah.
you know?
I think the thing is because it's invisible, I struggled with it too. I mean, my son and his father, they didn't understand, and it's invisible, but so you look good on the outside, but so that's the challenge. And I think that's the challenge with lupus, and that's the challenge with all these other ones, and fibromyalgia. If there is a I don't know. I always thought fibromyalgia is just they don't know what it is, so they're gonna name it that. For someone,
Right.
yeah, for someone currently struggling with Lyme or feeling unseen in their health journey, what words of encouragement would you offer?
Oh gosh, there's a lot of communities on or accounts to follow that I like, and I still always follow them. One of them is called the Tick Chicks. I
Oh,
don't know if you follow them or not, but
I
they're really good. They provide a lot of updated information, encouragement, motivation, empathy, and it's not necessarily a support group, but she kind of is able to do that in her posting and makes a lot of things available. And as always, probably this month is going to have a lot of, Lyme disease awareness stuff out there. I think I posted in a story about watching the movie, The Quiet Epidemic.
Hmm. I did.
And
Where is that?
yeah, it's on, I think it's on Amazon. You can get it
Oh,
on Amazon this month.
oh,
And
wow.
yeah. And I remember seeing it last year. And it takes people, they get to see like a specific Lyme disease person through some of their stages. And I always say I feel thankful that I never had to be in a wheelchair,
Same.
that I never had like you know, uh, like shakes, there's so many things that can
Right.
happen,
Yeah.
right? And so I can kind of see why, okay, people didn't know I was sick, but there was a year where I lost hair, I lost the corners of my eyebrows, teeth were chipping, nails were bad. So I wasn't absorbing vitamins. And those years I kind of like, hardly any pictures of me, stayed home,
Yeah.
it wasn't a
But you're
very
beautiful and you look,
fun year.
I was so shocked when I heard because like I said, I carried shame around other things in my past, but for some reason, the Lyme disease, I just still would say I overcame a debilitating illness. I didn't even volunteer that it was Lyme disease for some reason. I'm not
Mhm.
quite sure why. It's not like it's my fault or anything, but I don't know, I was embarrassed or something. I don't know why, but I just thought I would share that. It's weird. Getting into the coaching and all this, I know that being vulnerable is a superpower and it's how we help
Mhm.
others. Um, but let's see. What does living an empowered, abundant life look like for you today? And then we'll find out where people can find you and anything else you want to share.
Um, it's so funny because I know some people think that like to do personal growth and development work, means that you're going to come out, you're going to write the book, you're going to do, you're going to do all of these things. And that might be what someone's goal, right? And for me, it's kind of very opposite in life right now, given the age that I'm at, and that I've done so much of the doing. And so I'm kind of like, I'm in the living. I'm in the living part. My husband's probably, who knows how long he's going to continue working. But then there's like this whole life, and my daughters, building a family. And, you know, um, so for me, it looks like really enjoying life. that the no guilt kind of enjoyment, the, you know, the I've earned my stripes, and I can appreciate all that I had to go through now. Just like, when you're during a transformation process, you start to look back on your life, not with, anger and frustration. You start to have more empathy about that part of your life, the things that didn't work out well for you, or, that affected you more deeply. And it's just kind of automatic in life for me now, right? Like, I have deeper empathy for people who struggle. There's no problem someone can tell me that I'm going to be like, oh, like I just am like, okay, so how does that make you feel? Right? Like, nothing surprises me and
Right.
nothing takes me off course. So I like living that way. I didn't like living reactively. That was kind of like a past way of living. And so to me, that's being empowered, where I'm aware of my triggers and I can really diffuse them, be aware of them, catch myself, even when I think, oh, I always am finding something new, like, oh, a new belief. Like, I thought I found them all,
Right.
but certain things will happen. I'll be like, oh,
It's also like prioritizing for me, like my health and wellness is something I always prioritize. And like I don't really drink alcohol. I mean, I did have some wine at Passover just because I just decided, I mean, I didn't drink the 4 cups or whatever you're supposed to drink. I just but I haven't drank in many, many years. I quit for the 2.5 for the Lyme. And then I also just don't engage, just it doesn't do anything good for my body
right,
right now.
right.
And 57. But I just think that giving myself, like, instead of saying, oh, well, she's over here and she's on a trip and she's doing this and she's doing that, but it's okay that I am choosing different, and like, and just to me, that's empowering because I don't have to allow what someone else, like I remember a guy I was talking to, he's like, you need to have more fun. I'm going to this bar and we're going to do this. And it's like, your fun and my fun are different. Like, I might want to sit on the couch with my book and my dog, and I'm having a great Friday night
Yeah.
where you know what I mean? So, and that's not just because I was sick. That's just me choosing a different, what brings me joy and peace is just different.
Mhm.
Like, I don't
Mhm.
want to be in those energies. I'm very sensitive and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like that because it's you're, y- I mean, that's totally empowered living because you're choosing, not based on, someone else's input or,
Right.
um, and
Like,
that just, it's a whole different way of living and it feels good, so that's why it makes you keep wanting to be there, stay there.
right. But I used to be like, comparing or thinking there was something wrong with it. And then it's like, no, I want to do this is what I want to be doing.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's just a thing. But so you must be super excited about your daughter.
Yes, yes, yes. And I already know that instead of being called grandma, I want to be called Lola.
Okay, that's cute. I love
Whatever they end up calling me, I don't know what,
that.
they may not be
Well,
able
you
to
get to
say
say that's what you are.
it.
Is there anything else you'd love to share with the audience around the messy middle, around um, your metamorphosis, anything? And then we'll find out where people can find you and follow you. And
Okay. Um, yeah. So, I probably speak to the woman who's found themselves kind of like drifting, like, they have, they might be married, they might be divorced, but they are kind of trying to find a footing in life. And the kind of coaching that I do, if you want to solve a particular problem, like you're like, oh, I just can't, I can't find a man, or I can't seem to be happy with anything. It could be so general, like people don't need to totally understand where they're at to do coaching. I mean, that's the whole purpose of coaching, is to help you find really what's underneath all those surface aggravations and frustrations and all of that. And, like I always say, you can reinvent your life, you can reinvent yourself at any age. And, you and I are proof of that because like we did our bigger, reinventions later in life. It doesn't really come because you're still kind of living the first the first writing of your story, right? You live the script you were handed, as you're growing up. And then now it's like, this is the time where you can rewrite a new ending. You can rewrite the whole way you feel about life. And, for those people, and I get like probably 50-50, half and half. People think, well, I've been this way all my life. So they feel like they can't change.
Right.
Right. I've always done things this way. I've always been a doubter. I've always been
Right.
skeptical.
Those
I've
are
always,
very disempowering words. Like they're identifying, I'm this, I'm that, I'm lazy, whatever. You're not, you're choosing, right?
right. And it's a learned behavior that they've come to like
Yeah.
feel is them, out of circumstances and stuff. So that's like the journey I take people on in my coaching. And it's not like the transformation is the whole, right? It's like the whole thing. It's not one session. It's, like I don't do one-off coaching sessions for that reason, because it all strings together. And I find sometimes like by the third or the fourth session, whatever the concept we were covering earlier, all of a sudden that really clicks like on a deeper level,
Yeah.
right? So it always just comes in layers. And what I love to watch, we talked about this earlier, is to watch like the aha and when things click. And healing happens when the emotional impact is felt, right? When you can make connections and then your body can heal because it's a memory that it's reacting to all the
Yeah.
time. So there's so many different modalities. And nowadays we have so many different types of timeline healing and all these different types of and it's like you just really have to pick one that resonates with you in the moment, I think, for people. And that's why there's so many different coaches too, because
Right.
you've got to like feel a trust with the person, like, oh, like I think she's gonna understand me, and you really have to feel that to engage in the
Energy.
process,
Yeah.
because you have to be able to let go. You have to
Yeah.
be able to talk through.
Right. And be honest.
So,
Yeah. Because you're investing in yourself and you're worthy of transformation. You're worthy of your desires. I was going to say to you when you were talking, do you believe there's two things? One is, do you believe unresolved emotional trauma manifests in the physical body?
I do. I
Yeah.
do. I
Yes.
do. But like the body keeps the score.
Yes. That book. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
I agree. So I feel like that's a thing. And then I also was curious because this podcast is spiritual, about your spiritual a little bit beliefs. If you're a spiritual person or you bring that into, I mean, not religious, but are you spiritual at all? Just
Yes, I would totally consider myself spiritual. With and probably with the type of coaching I do with a little Jungian twist, right? So like the shadow work component of what I do is founded in Jungian psychology. So that inner child work. So there's like three pillars of that's kind of like the pillars of the coaching, but it's not the only thing that's inside the coaching too. So
right.
it's a little bit of a deeper work, but I think the biggest thing that women, as far as that I've seen in my practice, are dealing with that they don't think they're dealing with, that is the problem, is resentment.
Yeah.
Resenting yourself, resenting your choices, or resenting
And that's
someone.
block. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like a weight, and it's something that needs to be dug up under,
Yeah.
because once that root is found, then it's a freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's a block, an abundance block.
yeah,
If
yes,
you
most
are holding
definitely.
resentment, yeah, you've got to forgive. forgive yourself, forgive others. I've interviewed
Mhm.
a couple, yeah, on forgiveness. It's gigantic piece. You're right. That's a good,
Yeah. Yeah. So that is, a spiritual component, and I do, while I have the big, the initial reinvention coaching package, I also have a mini course, for people who are like, well, I'm not sure this is the kind of coaching it's meant for me. And
good.
I mean,
I'll put the
it's kind
link.
of like it's like an intro to like what you would expect, but you really get how it can help you. You come out of it like, okay, you get a, win. I put a way where we go through a process to release some heavy emotional baggage. So, you actually get some kind of a breakthrough,
No,
in a mini way. So like I could, for people who are at different levels on starting out, I offer that. Yeah. And I just want women that are in the messy middle to know that it's really not, you're feeling messy, but it's really an invitation. It's an invitation to look deeper instead of feeling like, it's a restlessness. It's like something you can't control. That's the sign. It's telling you there's something more for you.
I
You
love
can't
that.
see it, because that's why coaching is so valuable in the way that we can't see ourselves. Like the only person we can't see in a crowded room is ourselves, right? So,
No, I love
it
that.
takes some
We are
different
yeah,
angles.
we are the problem and the solution.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not our, and I know that you coach that way too. I mean, as coaches, we don't tell people what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
We
Yeah. Like that's the difference between, like I think, I'm not sure, like even a lot of people may not even be clear about that with coaching, right? Because it's all training you to be your own inner healer, your own
guru. Right.
listening to your
Right.
own wisdom.
Right. Like therapy, they're talking about the past and they're also like giving where with my coaching, it's more evocative coaching where you're asking the questions and then the person figures things out for themselves, right?
Mhm.
I love to just, teach worthiness and manifestation, and it's just so powerful and so much fun. So,
Yeah. Well, and you can see how it's working in your life. So,
yeah, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. Tell everybody where they can find you and follow you and find your mini course and all that.
Okay. Well, on Instagram, I think I just changed my handle. It's now called Midlife Magic with Laura.
Nice. I love that.
Just all one word in there. And I do share a lot of like wellness stuff and, like what I do in the morning or what I eat or, stuff like that, because I think the whole thing is important, like women's wellness in particular. But wellness also means emotional health. So that's a big part of it too. And in my little bio site link in on Instagram profile, I have a whole slew of like where you can listen to. I'll put this podcast on there too.
Oh, that's
When I get it.
amazing.
Yeah. So I put links to where they can learn more about me and my free guides and the mini course called "Bring Back the Magic."
I love it. That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing your journey and you're being so vulnerable and honest about everything. It really means a lot. Like I said, I saw
Thank you for having me.
you're welcome. Yeah, I mean, just meeting you for the first time and just being attracted to you seem perfect. Perfect. We're perfectly imperfect, right? We're perfectly
Right.
imperfect beings. But yeah, and then to find out you were also dealing with what I was dealing with. Oh my goodness, we're all one. We're all connected, it's just incredible.
Mhm. And a Michigan connection. We just found that one out.
Yeah. How long were you there? Were you born in Michigan?
No, I was born in Chicago, but I went to University of Michigan for college,
Oh,
and Michigan then has been our hub. So like with my husband's work, they would take us overseas, come back to Michigan. Overseas, come back to Michigan. Like, over there, and then Buffalo was the kind of just a general move and back to Michigan.
what
So
does
we
your
always
husband
landed
do?
there.
Yeah, what does your husband do?
He worked in the car industry for most of our lives, and in Detroit, the big automakers, and now he's a consultant.
Oh, nice.
all his wisdom and all the different avenues that he's worked at, and it's a perfect fit for him. So
And you've been
both
married how long? Because you have such a beautiful life story.
are 37 years.
That's huge.
I know.
7 years of marriage. That's incredible. That's a
Yes.
lot.
And we work on it. So, right,
Yeah,
because
good.
nothing just is like that, and he's been amenable, and supportive, and also does his work too.
Right. Because we change and grow and
Mhm.
amazing. Well, thank you so much. This was amazing. I will let you know when it gets out.
Great. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Awesome.